to Finding Calm in the Chaos. I am Denise Sith, and this is my podcast. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another edition of Finding Calm in the Chaos. I am Denise. And we've been really diving in this year about just, the whole Happy Quest episode. That was a good one. I have almost 3,000 downloads on that, people. I am very appreciative. That one's really reached out to you. I've gotten tons of messages on that one about how it just, it brought you to tears. You've been thinking about it. It's all made sense. Thank you for, basically making people feel like there's not something wrong with them because you can't just wake up and choose happy like all the happy motivational gurus tell you. It's not that simple. But then a lot of people were like, well, Denise, now that I know I have to do all this work, how do I know I need that work? Like I had a great childhood, or I did this, or I did that. And you know what? That is a really dang good question. And so we're going to kind of go over today reading the signs. Okay. So what are the signs? There's so many different kinds of childhood trauma that you can go through. I was looking at some of the statistics and, hey, Google it, man. I am not a therapist. I am not, licensed in any way to do that. I'm only speaking from my personal opinions and what I have found, statistically in stuff done by the Institute for Advanced Psychiatry, the American Medical Association, that kind of stuff. You can find all this stuff online. And so the incidences of childhood trauma in the United States is pretty alarming, right? More than 2/3 of children report at least one traumatic event by the age of 16. That's mental. From bullying to abuse, trauma is apparently now an unfortunate part of growing up for many kids. And as it was apparently for us as well, my generation, the generation after mine. And these effects can very much carry over into adulthood. In fact, they do. And they cause these like little underlying things that have a lot to do with stopping us from being our full potential people, right? As adults. And to help make peace, right? If you have a tumultuous past or even a past you weren't really sure of, you can reconcile past traumatic events. But first, you have to recognize them. And then once you recognize them, you can move forward and pursue a happy and healthy life, right? And that's what we all want. That's what we all want. But it's important to recognize signs that a past childhood trauma existed. Now, defining trauma, right? There are some common warning flags that will they're going to be red flags that are just there. And then there are just going to be some orange flags. And you're like, yeah, I really didn't, it's not a red flag. Yeah, but it's orange and you should probably take a look at it. But defining trauma in and of itself, there's no set cause and effect relationship between you and childhood trauma or people in childhood trauma. There's tons of different kinds of childhood trauma, right? And each person's reaction to those events depend on like a plethora of factors, right? Whether you were able to process the event, you had the right support systems, you were able to break free. In my situation, you break free, but they're still around, right? Your parents are your parents no matter what. But it's a matter of breaking free internally, not holding on, but honoring those defense mechanisms that you had to put in place as a result of the trauma. So, we are not going to talk about, there's tons of traumas. Okay. Sexual and physical abuse, witnessing domestic violence, bullying, community and school violence, And natural disasters, right? Loss of a loved one, someone really close to you, neglect, illness, accidents. All of these things fall within, obviously, some of those at a very serious level, but all in the end will result in these same feelings coming up in adulthood. And there are lots of different ways that you can kind of figure out the lingering effects of a childhood trauma, right? That are especially affecting you in adulthood. And one of those is post-traumatic stress disorder. And I know a lot of people put this stuff out there, because their feelings got hurt. And I'm going to be really sorry. I'm not sorry. So I'm sorry that I'm not sorry. But post-traumatic stress disorder, people throw that word around real bad today. And it kind of sickens me because people who actually suffer from PTSD, they live a very, very horrible life in their heads. And it just kind of ticks me off that people do that, right? But PTSD resolves obviously from unresolved trauma, right? And it's a very specific mental health issue that doesn't develop in everyone who experiences trauma, right? Only I don't know, they said it was 3 to 15% of girls and 1 to 6% of boys actually experience PTSD after a traumatic experience relating from their youth. That's pretty low, but when you put it in the mass, you still don't want to be that, 1% of guys, right? That would kind of suck because you still have it. And so, people, signs of PTSD, flashbacks, nightmares, avoidance, anxiety, depression, anger, trust issues, risky behaviors, self-destruction, self-destructive behaviors, withdrawal. Those are, any of those can apply to an adult for no reason that you can think of. Then it is reason for concern because you may be dealing with an unresolved PTSD from your childhood or from your young adulthood. You don't know, right? But attachments and relationships also get affected, right? This was a very big one for me. I didn't really date anybody seriously until Mr. Sith, and I had one relationship, and it was horrible. And it was the same relationship that I had with my father. It was horrible. Same nonsense triggers being brought up because I had no resolution whatsoever. I was in my late 20s, early 30s. I had went through cancer at the same time, the cancer treatment. It was horrible. But another warning flag is definitely problems forming attachments and relationships. I was trying to figure out if there was anything else I wanted to put in there, so I kind of lulled out in my mind. If your childhood trauma was caused by a loved one or a caregiver, you're going to learn to mistrust people, right? So for me, I always had and I catch myself still to this day, mistrust in adults or in people. They tell you something and you're automatically like, what's the point? What's the ulterior motive behind this? Now, let me get something straight. You may think that, and it's perfectly normal to think that. Now, let me explain why. Although it is a sign of unresolved childhood trauma, it also is a defense mechanism. Because if you have not changed your life and yourself and removed yourself from the energy field that draws untrusting, nasty people to you, you probably still need that, right? Because everybody's probably still out with a motivation, an underlying motivational reason why they're coming at you. You know what I'm saying? So I know this sounds horrible, but I've talked about it in the past. My family is notorious for not doing anything good for people, even family members, without thinking they're getting something big in return. They'll hold it over your head until the day you die. It doesn't matter how successful you get. You're a jerk off because now you think you're too good for everybody. And now you're just going to leave us behind after I did this for you. And it's like some stupid thing from 25 years ago when you were at your lowest and you're like, sorry, I asked for help. But that is the thing that you need to know, that today I identify those things and I understand that they do that because they have issues, but they're not putting that on my doorstep anymore, because you have to lay a boundary, right? And they will even, yeah, I love my mother. She is my, like, a best friend, and I love her. I could talk to her about anything. But I will tell you that even she, having lived a lifetime almost, with my father, who's the narcissist, that she says things sometimes, and also just recently brought up something from the past. And I was just like, yeah, I'm not talking about this again. Like, I can't change what happened. It's already been amended. We've already fixed that. We're past that. So we're just going to keep bringing it up. And because you are in a state of emergency or in need of something, you're going to bring that up. So everybody has to change their lives because something happened in a repetitive pattern that's happened in yours and Dad's life for as long as in our existence. But now you're going to put that on my doorstep. No, that's not happening. So, am I thankful for all the things they've done? Absolutely. Do I love them both? Absolutely. They're my parents. But I will no longer accept things that I personally have resolved within myself and with God and my therapist. So she has a lot to do with a lot of stuff. And so what we're going to talk about is two things that are super important, that I feel are the most important when it comes to knowing that you have childhood traumas, and please trying to get it resolved, because it can also affect your physical health. Now, let me tell you, it can obviously directly affect your mental and emotional health, but it can also have a huge influence on your physical health, right? There are studies that show that kids who were subjected to abuse, were more at risk for serious health issues, including diabetes, coronary artery disease, asthma, stroke, autoimmune disease. So these are things that are important, because although I don't blame my parents or anybody in my family for having autoimmune, I do believe that they were exasperated. Exasperated? What the hell am I talking about today? I believe that they were, I can't even think of the word now. Thanks, Lyme's disease. Again, I always like to think Lyme's disease when I can see the word, but I can't say it in my mind. But those are exaggerated. That's what I'm looking for. I definitely feel that the internal struggle of my childhood traumas did have a direct correlation to the amount of issues I had with autoimmune. And at some point, I think between work stress at the high impact job I was at the time, and all of those childhood stressors and traumas that I kept to myself, I think that also contributed to my cancer. I had obviously a rare form of Hodgkin's and non-Hodgkin's lymphomas combined, and lymphoma is known as basically the working person, high stress jobs cancer. If you didn't know, you know now. But I really want to focus on today is the emotional regulation and responses that come from traumas. So people have stated, I've had this, I've had that, I've had this. Let me tell you. So these are the signs to read. If you've had any kind of trauma in childhood or anything, like I said, it doesn't have to stay. I had a great childhood. Well, just because your parents bought you everything does not necessarily mean that you had maybe you were looking for, I don't know, quality time and not another pair of Nikes or, the newest Atari that came out. I totally dated myself there. You know what I'm saying? New Xbox just came out, color TV, whatever. I don't know. I don't know how old you are. So there you go. It could be anything. Okay. Anything. It doesn't necessarily relate to bad in a negative way. Bad things can happen even from good experiences if they were unhealthy and not providing a child with the security and the emotional, physical needs that they need as a child. That's the whole point of childhood. And so there are three basic signs that I think that are a giveaway that you need to start digging into your personal childhood traumas. And like I said, a lot of people were struggling with pointing this out and figuring out and doing all that. And so I nailed down 3 of them that I know were huge indicators for me. And I'm hoping that they will help you become indicators, be able to find the indicators in you. So we're going to take a quick break for our sponsor at Reclaimed, and then we'll be back. Today's episode of Finding Calm in the Chaos is sponsored by Reclaimed. Reclaimed is a one-man brand from Chicago, Illinois, specializing in handmade commercial and residential furniture and fixtures. The man behind the brand is Brian McQuaid, and the soul of his business is anchored in his handmade wood art pieces. Don't think that these pieces are just ordinary furniture and fixtures. These pieces were founded under the notion that art should be affordable to everyone. Each piece is custom designed and crafted with everything he's got, which means you're not getting a plain big box item made in mass, but a personalized, meaningful work of art that will bring compliments from whoever sees your Reclaimed piece and joy with you seeing and using your piece daily. Not a single person, I will tell you, walks into my office without asking me about my Reclaimed desk and end table. And they can't hang their coats without asking me where I got the cool railroad spike wall coat rack either. Brian's talents go far beyond desk tables and coat racks. Personalized hearts, jewelry boxes, flags, special occasions. It's art, folks, so the possibilities are pretty much endless. You don't have to take my word for it. You can check out the beautiful art of Reclaimed at www.reclaimedchicago.etsy.com. Again, that's www.reclaimedchicago.etsy.com. Or check out and follow them on Instagram at Reclaimed, BRECLAIMED.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey, 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 we're back there from our little break from Reclaimed. And we're looking at reading the signs to find out if you have any emotional trauma from childhood. And a lot of people had, after the Happy Quest episode, had mentioned that, you know, they didn't think either it hit them or they wasn't sure where to start. They weren't sure where to start with respect to identifying and going back to help themselves come to peace with their childhood traumas. And it took me 3 years. So good luck. I hope yours takes less. It may take longer. You know, it all depends. I mean, I totally lived with mine for 49 years before I actually decided to reach down and dig deep and just, you know, look the monster in the eye and just be like, hey, because you know, you get angry. And anger is part of your grieving. It's a grieving process for yourself. And so it's okay to grieve. You know, oh, damn it, I wish I had a, you know, why didn't I do this? And why couldn't we just go to Disneyland? And why couldn't we take vacations? And, you know, why couldn't I sleep over by people's houses? I mean, it's shit like that, guys. I mean, it's simple as that. Things you want as a kid that you don't realize, right? I didn't get any of those things because I didn't want my dad showing up drunk at people's houses to retrieve me because he remembered I was there. And we didn't go for vacations because we lived check to check and barely had money to do anything. You know, I remember drinking powdered milk. It's probably why I can't stand milk right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just stuff like that. Little things that I wish we had vacations. And that's why I do that for Peter. I want to make sure that he has it, but he also needs to understand I'm fortunate that I had kids older because I still have this old school mentality that, you know what, you're not going to act like a fool, and I'm not opposed to slapping you on the back, you know, the backside if I need to, if you get out of hand. I've rarely had to ever do that for Peter, but, you know, they have their moments. But at the same time, I'm old enough also to not like completely wig out because I'm 22 and stressed out and wish I was drinking instead of having a kid at home and I want to beat him to death. You know what I'm saying? Like that's when people freak out. You're in a completely different mental, I'm not saying if you're 22, you're going to beat your kid to death. Please, 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 no. It was just showing the severity of mindset between being 22 and 46 when you're having a kid. That's all I want. That's all I meant, peeps. Reading the signs. Okay, so the first sign, if you at any time, this was huge for me, assumed the worst possible thing is going to happen at any given time. We go on trips. Oh my God, we're going to get into an accident. It's snowing out. I hope he doesn't crash his car on the way home. Let's just forget about Mr. Sith totaling his car in a parking lot 2 weeks ago. But, he's a bad driver as it is. So, like, just imagine how I feel now. He's sick. Is this going to happen? If I do this, is that going to happen? I am literally can play by play, like the negative stuff. I walked around like this for 24/7 and I try to catch myself. My worst right now is in the car. So in the car, I'm always assuming, because I'm a great driver and I'm not tooting my own horn. I have no moving violations and I've never been into an accident outside of 2 that were caused by drunk drivers and a 3rd that was caused by a Firestone recall tire. Just saying. But I just always am on. You have to drive offensively and defensively. And Mr. Sith does not do that. I'm pretty sure he drives like he's on the bench. I wish I was joking. So you need to know that if you're always assuming the worst possible thing is going to happen, your husband's late for work, he's stuck in traffic, he didn't call because maybe he just doesn't want to call from the phone. Maybe you live in a city where he should not be on the phone. You don't want your husband or your spouse texting you while they're in the car. Please don't let them text you. But your mind right away, oh my God, where'd he go? Is he doing this? Is he doing that? Like, stop those things. Okay. It's called catastrophizing. A catastrophe is always on the brink of going to happen. Catastrophizing. I have trouble saying the dang word. But it happens because something terrible did happen. Okay. And so it's not you, it's you. That's kind of how I put this all the time. I used to tell myself, it's not you, Denise, it's you. But it's like little you, not big you. Big you is thinking like little you, who needed to think like that at the time for a defense mechanism, right? Something terrible did happen to you. And your brain is on high alert so that it doesn't happen again. So you're always thinking you're going to be on like super defense, but you have to allow some offense in. But when you are thinking from childhood trauma, those things are now turning into double. It's this massive snowball effect of the snowball rolling down the mountain, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's okay. You just need to notice that it's happening and address what that trauma was. I mean, you need to go back and define on the timeline the exact trauma that started that defense mechanism. And then you need to, once you identify it, you need to say, hey, that was pretty crappy that happened. And then you need to forgive. And then you need to honor your younger self, that they were able to pull themselves together and save you all these years. That's important. But then you need to tell them they need to take a step back, and you need to handle your business as an adult, and that we're not going to think like that anymore because it doesn't serve you in your current life to think like little you. You know what I'm saying? For me, it was 7-year-old Denise. 7-year-old Denise. It doesn't serve me for 7-year-old Denise to be in my head as 53-year-old Denise. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of what we're talking about here. So catastrophizing. You're assuming the worst possible thing's going to happen because something did happen and your brain's on high alert to keep it from happening again. Okay. Now, second sign that's really important, mind reading, predicting what people are saying, right? Someone, you said, hey, can we go to dinner on Friday? And you're like, oh, I really can't. I just can't right now. And then you get off the phone or you get off the text message and you're like, What did I do to her? Is she mad that I told her that like her shoes didn't look good with that outfit? Is she mad because of 7 years ago when, we were at the wherever and we had a discussion and we had we argued over the check because she ordered drinks and I didn't and she wanted me to pay half. And I'm just making stuff up. But that's what happens when you're mind reading. You are predicting what people will say. And that is a survival mechanism that your brain's using, right? From patterns that you've seen in the past to avoid new traumatic experiences happening again, right? So for me, my family was filled with gaslighters and a narcissist. So, they lay it out for you. And then then you look back and you're like, well, wait a minute. Why did that happen? Why, something will happen. And then, you'll hear the same verse about something. And I'm like, okay, is he super mad right now? Is like everything going to explode? Is the shit going to hit the fan any minute now? Oh yeah, it's coming. I think it's coming. And I'll spend the whole damn time we're together, 2 hours at a party, wondering when he's going to flip out. Yeah, I'm talking about my dad. And it never happens because, number one, he's way older and like in a state of dementia and, feeble and elderly. He's a shell of the man he was. But in all honesty, I don't know if I like the shell of a man or I do. Because I don't have to tiptoe around this one. But I will tell you that when he does things that are super nice now because he doesn't remember half the past or chooses not to, I don't know. Whatever happens, happens for him. I'm not in his mind. I can't predict that. So I don't care. But I will say that when something doesn't happen, I also feel weird. And that's what I'm working on now. Post-traumatic reactions, right? I need to understand. I understand it happens. I came to terms with the fact that it happened. But now when the opposite happens, I feel like, well, that's weird. Okay, everybody, let's give me a hug. Like, we weren't huggers in my family. We just weren't huggers. We weren't kissers. There was no, I love you. None of that. So now when it happens, it's like, I almost feel like for the Potter fans out there, it's almost like when my dad hugs me now, when he leaves, it's almost like the whole Draco telling Voldemort that Voldemort wants to give him a hug. And like, he's just kind of just sitting there and it's just strange, right? The whole thing. Draco's like, oh, don't know what to do. And, Voldemort's awkward anyway. And he's all just like, oh, Draco. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. That's literally what I look like a stiff as a board with my hands down, like, oh, okay. Because I don't want to be rude, but it's still uncomfortable. And those are traumatic responses, even though I know they exist. And at least now, the good part is I can talk about them. I can talk about them, evaluate them, understand that they're happening and why. But it will probably, for me, I feel like it's not going to ever be the point where I can give my dad a hug and be like, I love you, dude. Like, I'll never call my dad daddy. It's never going to happen. I just feel like it's an endearing term for fathers who've done certain things. And I did not experience those things. So it's not happening. But I am always just, I have a couple friends who call their friends daddy. Both of them fathers have since been deceased since I've known them. And they still just have such longing and grief and love for their fathers. And to me, that is so incredibly heartwarming that they had a relationship with their fathers like that. And I just think that that's luckier than skunk right now, right? Luckier than skunk. Lucky skunks. But that's it. Mind reading. Predicting what people say. It's a survival mechanism, right? You're picking up patterns, and so you automatically go into this mode, and you're on it, right? You're like, nope. What's going on? And that's totally okay. But also, that is one of the signs to read that you need to work those issues out and work back to the original. You got to go back on your timeline, your life timeline. Okay, if you don't know what I'm talking about when I talk about timelines, is when you are doing, trying to come to terms with your life and traumas. Timeline work is very helpful. You kind of like envision yourself rising over your timeline of life and zipping back and forth and trying to figure out when things changed. What was a huge traumatic experience in your life? And some people could pinpoint it right away. I could, right? I was 7, but other people can't. And that's okay. You could find the general area. Because I always hate when people are like, did you find the exact thing? Did you do it? Can you tell me how you felt? Can you do it? I don't do well on that. I try the best I can, but I always feel like I need to have the right answer. And that's from my childhood trauma. So I had to literally get over my own timeline work. I had to, in my own head, get over the fact that the timeline work in itself was stressful to me. But it is what it is, right? All right. And third sign, over focusing on the negative and dismissing the positive, right? That's a thought pattern modeled for you growing up when you were young and you had an impressionable mind, but it was this focusing on the negative and not in dismissing positives. So I grew up in a household where everything was like, it was a shitstorm. Okay. Everything was everybody's fault. It was always negative. It didn't matter what happened. It was negative because they had these horrible mindsets, and it was everybody else's fault for things that went wrong for each individual. And that all was something that was modeled by an adult, right? Impressionable children, impressionable mind. And you just learn that growing up. So if you think that like everything you do is just like over focusing on negative and you're like, I don't know why I do this, because that's what you were modeled from when you were, whoever you grew up with, that's what it was modeled after. You grew up around people and adults that chose to choose negative and never look at the positive. And that's so my family. My family is very, very hard. And you know, hey, I'm even going to be the devil's advocate for them right now and be like, you know what? Maybe they do feel this way, but they're so closed off to communication. They don't express it to the rest of us that they're appreciative and grateful. But I will tell you that I personally did not get the feeling, because I don't know how other people in my family are feeling. I only know how they make me feel. And I will tell you that I've spent 53 years with my family, and I don't feel that none of them are really appreciative and thankful and blessed for even waking up in the morning sometime. I think that they have a tendency to focus on the negative because it's all they know. And I did that exact same thing. And this is my biggest sign that I fall back into. And it's super important for me to stop doing this, focusing on the negative. And it seems strange, right? That you're like, Denise, what? You focus on the negative? But within my own mind, I am constantly battling that it is okay to be happy for things that I do. It is okay to be happy for things that are happening to my family when they are not happening to the rest of my family. Does that make sense? Like, my bed is my bed made. I had some shit happen to me in my life. I don't regret any of it. It's been the ups of the ups and the downs of the downs. But I feel that there's still this mentality and the stigma around the fact that I will be that kid in the family that is constantly that person, right? Because I'm not a kid anymore, that claws her way out of these situations and always somehow comes out on top. And that's from sheer freaking will that there is more for me in this world. I don't know where that comes from, but there's more for me in this world. I survived a cancer. I survived 90 days in a county jail. I've survived addiction, and I've survived a narcissist, and I'm an adult child of an alcoholic. You just do. I feel like that has all encompassed me and given me this this push into letting other people know that it doesn't matter where you've been, how good, how bad, how low, how lower than low, where you live, what neighborhood, what direction, whether it's the big ass fancy neighborhood or you live in the hood, it doesn't matter. Your mindset will get you where you need to be. But you need to reward yourself for things without caring if other people are going to try to pull that reward away from you. They're doing it for a reason. They're not doing it because they hate you. They might say that, but and give you the appearance that that's it. But it's because they are hurt themselves. They are dealing with unresolved things in their life, and all they could do is model the same behavior and experiences that they had growing up. That is what they refer to as the family cycle, right? The cyclical sickness, if you want to call it, right? Of negativity. You can break that. And when you do, that whole circle that you broke out of is going to come smashing down on you as hard as they can. And you know what? It's okay. Put that happy shield up. That seems to deflect them a lot. And I don't care anymore. I used to care, but because I cared for the wrong reasons. I replaced the word care with worried, right? I didn't really care. I was worried about, because when you're a kid and you have all these things happening to you, right? And you're living on eggshells in your house at like 7, 8, 9, 10, because it's just going to blow up at any minute. Can't even look the wrong way. Can't do this. Can't do that. Don't do this. What's wrong with you? Why didn't you eat supper? You eat supper. What are you going to just be? Fat? You're going to be fat if you keep eating that. It's like, if you keep telling kids over and over all of these harsh criticisms and uncompliments, I call them. And if you tell a kid they're going to wind up in prison enough, they're going to wind up in prison. If you tell a kid that they're eating too much, they're going to wind up with an eating disorder. I had a father who drank too much, and I thought, I'm never going to drink. And then I was like, well, I really like gin and tonics, and man, Jack Daniels tastes good. Tastes even better right out of the fucking bottle. Sorry, I said the F word. And then it's like, well, duh, I just fell right into the same damn trap. And you know what? Listen, it was my fault, but it wasn't my fault. I think it's not your fault that you fall into the same behaviors that are modeled for you, because they're going to be negative. They were negative behaviors modeled, and that's what I followed. If you had parents who were financially unresponsible, didn't own anything, had a horrible bank account, never had money, guess what happens when you become an adult? Want to take a guess? You're going to be financially pretty unresponsible. But then as an adult, you have to stop blaming that shit on your parents. And then you have to put your big girl pants on, take some financing classes, and figure out how to budget. That's what I did at 49. I wish I was joking. You know what I'm saying? There comes a time, it's okay to know that you act a certain way because that is what you were modeled as a child. But then you have to put your good girl or good boy, big boy pants on, right? Your big boy, put your big pants on. Since I can't remember. Whatever you want to be, man. Okay? I'm all, whatever. Put your big pants on. And then you need to start, you recognized it. You identified it. You want to be different. So now you have to make the actions to be the adult you want to be. And that's how it works out. That's how you learn. And once you come to terms with those things, it just doesn't go away. Here's a disclaimer right away. As much as people say that once you figure out what your childhood traumas were, everything's all happy. Absolutely not. You will spend the rest of your life. It's like recovery. You are in recovery from your childhood trauma because any little thing that is a trigger may put you back in those situations. It happens to me all the time. When I get agitated or I'm highly stressed and Mr. Sith or Peter are doing things that are absolutely ridiculous, I immediately want to fly off the deep end. And what happens when I fly off the deep end? number one, I'm succumbing to a hissy fit from little Denise and big Denise isn't handling it. And number two, I'm not helping my autoimmune disorder because I'm stressing myself out even more. And then I'm going to be remorseful that I did it, which is going to cause me to be even more stressed out and trigger more lupus flares because I fell into it again. And this is where it's huge that you understand that you have to be accepting, loving, and of yourself. That it's okay that you can fall off the wagon every now and then. You just need to know, keep them big pants on, adult pants only, and get back on. And this way, as you are repetitively doing it over and over and correcting these childhood behaviors versus your adult wanted behavior, eventually then you're going to fall into a new habit of just the behavior and the responses and the thoughts that you want. But know that life happens. And so there will be times that you're going to slip, and it's okay. It's okay to slip because we always have the will and the choice to get up and do it again. And that is in and of itself the very essence of life, right? Why we're here on this earth, given this amazing thing of free will and the idea to make decisions. So if we have free will and the willingness to make decisions and choices for ourselves, and we're bitching that our lives are not feeling good, well, then who's really to blame? We keep pointing fingers at everyone else. But like I'll always say at the end, sometimes if you're pointing fingers enough, you have to turn it around and point it at yourself and then really put on your shoes and start getting to work. And you might want to put on boots because usually you're going to be stepping in some deep stuff to resolve it out. So hopefully those things helped you. We're really going deep this year and taking some big steps. And I hope that you all come with me on this journey. We're all going to be better people this year, if not for ourselves, but for our families and for our communities. And because that's what this world needs right now. People who are confident and kind and loving and faithful. That's what we need. And I don't mean faithful to like other people. I mean faithful in a God, right? And a higher power. That's what provides strength and foundation. And that's what I'm going to leave you with today. So until next week, I guess we'll see you guys Saturday on a coffee talk. Lead with kindness. Thank you, friends, for spending this time with me today. If you found some calm listening in, please take a moment to subscribe to Finding Calm in the Chaos. And just so you don't miss out on future episodes, make sure you're receiving notifications. Thanks again. Until next time, lead with kindness.